There is a specific kind of quiet in an office on the day someone leaves for good. You have seen it. A coworker, 55 years old, walks to the front desk at the start of the work week and hands back their badge. The cake gets eaten. The card gets signed. And then they walk out the door toward a permanent vacation, and they simply never come back. Here is the part that sits with you. You know their salary. It was printed on the same pay scale as yours. You know they did not win the lottery. You know they did not inherit an oil field in Alberta. So what exactly do they understand about the Canadian economy in 2026 that you do not? That question is the entire story. Because the answer is almost never luck. It is architecture. Now, let us be honest about the first group, because they are real. Some of these early exits are what we call the inherited advantage. These are the roughly 80% of public sector workers who still hold a gold-plated defined benefit pension, or the homeowner who bought a semi-detached in the GTA back when it cost less than a new pickup truck. They did not architect anything. They stood in the right doorway at the right decade, and the market did the rest. For private sector Canadians, that door has mostly closed. Today, only roughly 1 in 10 private sector workers has a true, defined benefit pension at all. If you are waiting for that safety net, it is not coming. But there is a second group, and this group is far more interesting because you could actually join them. These are the people who use the architected advantage. They did not get lucky. They used what I call mathematical slingshots. Let me explain what that means, because this is the single idea that separates the person handing back the badge from the person watching them leave. Think about a spacecraft trying to leave our solar system. It does not carry enough fuel to simply blast its way out in a straight line. That is impossible. Instead, it flies toward a massive planet like Jupiter, and it uses the planet's gravity. It falls toward the planet, whips around it, and steals a piece of that planet's momentum. It leaves faster than it arrived. Engineers call it a gravity slingshot. Now, most Canadians spend their 30s and 40s burning fuel to reach a planet, and then they simply land on it. The planet is the lifestyle, the bigger house, the nicer car in the driveway. They arrive, they touch down, and they are stuck there on the surface, working forever to pay for the gravity that is now holding them down. The early retiree does something different. In their 30s and 40s, they build up 2 enormous gravitational bodies. The first is home equity. The second is a compounding RRSP. And instead of landing, they use the gravity of those 2 planets to slingshot their momentum. They do not touch down into the lifestyle. They use the speed to exit the atmosphere of labor entirely. That is step 1. Build the gravity, then use it to leave. But here is where it gets genuinely sneaky. And this is the part your coworker will never explain to you at the farewell lunch. When you finally do run into them, a year later, buying groceries at Loblaws on a Tuesday afternoon, they will casually mention that their income is actually quite low now. And you will be confused. How can someone who does not work have less income than you, and yet own their home outright and travel 4 months a year? The answer is invisible money. It is the shadow paycheck. They are pulling a large portion of their spending money out of a TFSA. And the critical thing about a TFSA withdrawal is that the CRA does not count it as income. It does not appear on line 23600 of your tax return. It is financially invisible. Why does that matter so much? Because of a rule called the OAS clawback. In 2026, once your net income climbs past roughly $95,000, the government begins taking back your old age security at a rate of 15 cents on every extra dollar. RRSP withdrawals count toward that limit. CPP counts. A RIF withdrawal counts. But TFSA money? Silent. Invisible. It funds a rich lifestyle while keeping their official, taxable income artificially low, so the government never triggers the clawback. They look poor on paper and live like royalty in reality. Which brings me to the second way to picture all of this. Forget spacecraft for a moment. Picture water. Most Canadians spend their entire lives carrying buckets of water from a river. The river is your job. Every single morning, you walk down, you fill the buckets, you carry them back, and you drink. And it works. But the instant you stop walking to the river, you go thirsty. There is no buffer. The distance between working and thirst is about 2 paychecks. The early retiree spent 20 years doing something else entirely. While they were still carrying buckets, they were also digging. They built a massive, deep reservoir, a private lake. And here is the magic of the year, 2026. Their reservoir is now so large that the rain fills it faster than they can drink from it. The rain is compounding growth. The drinking is their spending. The lake is rising, even while they take from it every single day. They are not richer than you in some mystical sense. They simply stopped carrying buckets from the river because they finally dug a lake big enough to rain into itself. Now, let us talk about geography, because this is the lever hiding in plain sight. There is a move happening across this country right now that I call the GTA and Lower Mainland exit. Picture a household sitting on a home in Toronto or Vancouver worth $1,200,000. On paper, they are millionaires who feel completely broke, because you cannot eat a house and you cannot spend a hallway. So they sell. They take that $1,200,000 and they move 600 kilometers east or out to the prairies, and they buy a beautiful, fully renovated home in a value town in the Maritimes for $400,000. Cash. No mortgage. Do the arithmetic on that. They just injected roughly $800,000 of liquid capital into their retirement, tax-free, because a primary residence sale is exempt from the CRA. That single geographic decision is the equivalent of a $500,000 capital injection into their lifestyle, and often much more. Moving is not running away. For a Canadian household, moving is one of the most powerful wealth strategies that exists. But the smartest ones do one more thing, and this is the piece the amateurs miss. They manage the success tax before it arrives. See, the CRA has a rule. At age 71, you are forced to convert your RRSP into a RRIF and begin pulling money out, whether you want to or not. If you save too aggressively and never touched it, you can get hit with an enormous, brutal tax bill in your 70s, right when you least want it. The architects see this coming from a decade away. They perform what we call an RRSP meltdown. They deliberately draw the account down early, in their late 50s and 60s, in small, low tax slices, so that the tax bomb at 71 is already diffused. They pay a little tax on purpose, early, to avoid paying an enormous amount of tax by force later. So step back and look at what actually happened here. None of this was passive. Passive saving is the person carrying buckets, hoping the river never runs dry. What these people did was active architecture. They flipped a switch from autopilot to manual override. They stopped simply feeding money into accounts and started engineering the flow of that money through time and through the tax code. And this is the version of the 4% rule that finally makes it real. Take a single RRSP worth $1 million. Draw 4% from it in a year, and it produces a $40,000 paycheck, indefinitely, for the rest of your life. That is not a fantasy number. That is a spreadsheet. That is arithmetic that any Canadian with 25 to 30 years of runway can build. So the next time you watch someone hand back their badge at 55, do not tell yourself they got lucky. Most of them did not. Early retirement in Canada is not a miracle. It is a mathematical opt-out. It is the quiet realization, on any random morning, that future you went ahead and bought back the next 3 decades of your time while you were not looking. Because true freedom is not about being rich. It is the moment your assets provide you with the oxygen to breathe on their own, regardless of what the boss says, and regardless of what the bank says. The only real question left is simple. Are you still carrying buckets, or have you started digging the lake? If this video helped you, hit like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.